it easy for later on. Okay.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the final presentation of our 10th anniversary A Deck in Bloom. I am Margot Shaw, Editor-in-Chief of Flower, and we saved our flower girl for last. And but first, I want to thank our sponsors, Century Furniture, Accent Decor, and Mayesh and Cut Flower. So what we're going to do is ask all of you to, or any of you who want to, you don't all have to do this, but if you have questions, just go ahead and type them in and put them in chat, and I will take those questions at the end and take them to our very special flower guest from Blue Jasmine Floral. Her name is Paulina Nieliwocki. How'd I do?
You did beautifully.
Okay, I think we need one of these for that, right?
Yes, you do. She did great. She did great.
Okay, well, just a little bit about Pauline. She is the owner of Blue Jasmine Floral Design Studio in Berkeley Heights, New Jersey. And her floral design style is guided and inspired by flowers and foliage. She loves dainty accents, color, texture, and each stem's unique shape. Paulina's work extends to weddings, events, a floral subscription service, photo styling, and floral workshops. She has 64,000 Instagram followers. You got me beat. Where fans are way beat. Where fans are inspired daily with her beautiful and unique floral arrangements. Please welcome Paulina Nieliwocki from Blue Jasmine Floral. Paulina, how are you?
I'm so great, and I'm so excited to be joining such an amazing panel and to be part of this amazing conference. It's really, really special.
Well, we think you're special, and I'm so glad you said yes, because I've been one of those 64,000 followers for a while. So thank you again for joining us. But before we launch into these images, I wanted to tell everyone that when we're through with this short presentation, Paulina is going to do a demonstration for us. So stay tuned. And so I wanted to find out from you how you got into floral design, since you were what?
I was originally a linguist doing a lot of translation and interpreting services, moved on to high school teacher. I was the AP language teacher, and I had an itch that I had to scratch creatively, and I had to, really think about what that would mean for me. And flowers was the natural path to take.
We are glad that you did. And can you just tell us a little bit about the name of your business?
Yes. So Blue Jasmine is actually this is where the translation comes in. The direct translation of my grandmother's favorite flower, which was Jasmine Celeste. And that is, like I said, directly translated to Blue Jasmine. And the botanical name is actually the plumbago flower, which I'm sure some of you out there may even have in their gardens right now blooming.
Okay. And so that was your grandmother's favorite flower. And what language is that?
That is Spanish. My family is from Uruguay, South America. My parents immigrated here in the 70s. I was born here. So I do have, that is my native language, actually. English is my second language.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, so it's great because I got to visit often, and plumbago there, it just flourishes. They're enormous, these bushes with this intoxicating periwinkle light blue hue. It's just, you can't not look at it. I just love it.
Mm-hmm. I am with you. And so speaking of color, let's walk through some of these images, because I really like and appreciate your use of color, and it's romantic. And well, anyway, I'll let you tell us what it is. Let's talk about this image on the left.
Absolutely. This image is an installation where I really focused on texture. I wanted this to be ultra feminine. So we worked in these pale pinks, some apricots, and instead of just making it super pink, this lavender, I feel like really rounded out the color story. The inspiration behind this is actually this allium that you see here on the mantle. If you actually study that allium, you can see almost pinks inside of it with the little purple dome. So it's really kind of what drove this installation. So I just was so excited about that one.
I was so excited I made you include it in
Yes.
your PowerPoint. So what was the event or the occasion, or were you just playing around?
This was actually done for a conference that I had done with Team Flower, and they asked me to do a textural installation, and they just sort of let me ride with it. So I did part of it, and then because I'm constantly wanting to play and make flowers, and y'all out there, I actually made this installation above my head yesterday because I couldn't help it. If I have time, I'm instantly hanging things and making installations. So I wound up adding the hanging installation above the mantle to connect, to kind of make this ramification shape, because I thought that was something that I've been wanting to do and wanted to see what that would look like. And I'm actually quite pleased with that.
I would be too. It's exotic, but it's still accessible. I really like it. So tell us about the one next door.
So the one next door is a similar style where it's very, very textural. I really like using plumosa fern because it has this frothy airiness, and the trundles are just so delicate and beautiful and dainty. And I don't know what I was doing. I think I was reading some article on something, and it was about celestial things. So somehow it popped into my head that this Orlea lace and baby's breath can communicate this kind of celestial stars and I don't know, kind of galactic feel. So this is actually a ring structure that I had welded 3 copper rings. So that's the base of the structure. And then I wanted to feel almost like the Milky Way kind of beaming down with a little arrangement that's just little stars and little dainties. So that's where the blues came in, and the actual shape of the installation was inspired by.
It's magical, very organic and kind of spontaneous, and I love it. But so speaking of structures, what is the structure for this installation on the left?
That is actually a Harlow stand from Accent Decor. It is the tall one, which I believe is 45 inches tall. And then from there, I attached a branch to it that I actually just foraged outside. And that is what helps me extend the line all the way up. And then it's just a lot of chicken wire. And that is what makes it also nice and fluffy and wide. It gives it the girth that I need instead of using a little singular pole.
Well, it's really, really effective. And so let's see what's next.
Okay, so these are more installations, and I'll give you a little insight on just so before we pop into the next one. This is actually the same mantle that you saw in those original images, but I wanted to give you guys just how different it could really look, and a very different look and feel.
Gosh. And so these arrangements at the foot of the mantle are reminiscent to me of that gardeny loose look that you have really mastered, and we'll talk about that later. But this is really, really pretty and wild and loose, but I know it's not easy. It looks simple and wild and everything, but I know there's a lot of time and discipline and art that goes into it. So and I like that gray background.
It helps it, I think, pop a little bit. It brings it, I think it makes the pinks really vibrant, and it makes the oranges look a little bit more lush and vibrant. I agree. I loved it.
It's like on a gray day, if you take pictures outside, the colors are more vibrant than if the sun's out. So what about this next one?
So this next one this was a just for fun piece. Where I wanted to, this is just a hanging installation of Forsythia. But the idea behind this one was a little bit more sculptural, a little bit more very, very, very high attention to the branch shape, and just really highlighting those nuances. So I just thought that that was just kind of fun. And it's nice to see Forsythia just be the star all by herself, not mixed in with anything else. I thought it gave it a little bit more impact than if I would have loaded it up with, other yellow flowers or, other foliages or any other ingredient.
She's worthy of her own show. I'm so glad that that you did this hanging, and because to me it just adds so much more interest and imagination than if you'd had it on some kind of pole or in some kind of container. This, you can barely see the line, and it's really clever and really beautiful. So thank you,
Margot. You're the best.
Okay, let's keep going.
Let's keep going. Here's our next one.
Okay, so you are showing us now this is how I think of you and your style somewhat, as well as the installations, but you are really a master of these compote-y, loose, gardeny, asymmetrical. I mean, I just think you're so good at this. So talk about these and your technique a little, if you will.
Absolutely. This is definitely something that I feel like I finally found my voice after a few years of designing. I was able to hone in on, what is it that I really enjoy? What do I want this to look like? And ultimately, most of my designs, if you notice, I like to use a high variety count. I like to use a lot of small dainty blooms, as I think that adds a little bit more texture. And you'll see during the demo how I really do begin by setting the shape in the very beginning. So I set the shape, but after the basics are down, I do let the flowers do the talking, and they guide me more than I guide them. So if there's a really interesting, I always look for one stem that has an interesting curve or something just fun to highlight. And then you'll see how even towards the end, then that's when I add the drama. I always call it the drama. So in the picture on the left, it's like that the GM and the Scabiosa are really giving this design a more dramatic asymmetrical line. And on the image on the right, it's that foxglove reaching really, really, really high on the on the left. And then even the foxglove and the Baronia arcing over to the right. It's giving this more drama and more exaggeration of the design. And the other thing too is, if you look at most of the things I do, I make the center really, really low. I really depress that in there to really highlight some negative space. I think the negative space is where I find the most beauty and the most interest. And I always am very conscious of making sure there's negativity to highlight. For example, on the image on the right, if you see the little butterfly ranunculus, it looks like it's just floating in the middle there. So if I didn't have that nice and low in the middle, those nuances would get lost. So that really is what I focus on, and I do in almost every single arrangement I do in this for compotes.
Well, that makes sense, and I'd never thought of that. So I'm going to remember that negative space. Okay, let's keep going.
All right. Oh, bouquets.
Oh my. Okay, these are both exquisite and so successful. Talk about that.
Oh, I love making bouquets, and I love a lot of flowers. I always say the more flowers, the better in a bouquet. And I very much like to cluster in a bouquet. I think bouquets really can get, nuance can get lost. So over here on the left, I did a little bit of a cascade of yellow, cascading to the right, really concentrating that pocket of yellow. I concentrated a little yellow with the daffodil as well. And then if you notice, there's a little triple poppy happening on that side of the bouquet, because I still am thinking about negative space. So instead of the negative space being in the center, like in a centerpiece, for a bouquet, I use more of an aerial, more of a vertical plane of how I think about negative space. And I play on the two planes with really dainty and fluttery things so that when she's walking down the aisle, I mean, I want things to be bouncing as if the bouquet is alive in her hands, not static, right? So
it's excited too to be walking down the aisle.
Exactly. And I love color. I just love color. I think color stories are really interesting in bouquets on how you can create a really interesting color story. On the right, if you notice, I actually tried to do a bit of a Hogarth line with the light pink. It starts at the top with the Cosmo. It bleeds down with a little bit of Sweet Pea, and then you hit another Cosmo, the Lavaterra, the pink Majolica. So it really, your eye is traveling from the top of this cascade all the way to the bottom down to that orchid, and you're not getting stuck anywhere because the color distribution allows you to really travel and look, and it's not like a black hole, or I'm always very conscious about where the colors are laying in a bouquet.
Movement is just perfect because of that. All the textures and colors and the placement. You're right. I don't get stuck anywhere. And I start with that white Cosmo and go all the way down. It's just lush and beautiful.
I love
and
that.
I like it with her pink workout pants or whatever.
I know. Fun fact, that's me.
I like it with your pink workout pants. Excellent. That's funny. That panty.
Right. I went into work and I actually took a picture with it with a mint green color dress, and it came out pretty. And then I looked at this bouquet and I'm about to wrap it. And I said to my colleague, Holly, I said, you know what, let's just snap a picture with this pink pant. I know it's crazy. I said, but you never know, it might look great. And I liked these images so much better. I feel like the color really popped even and more, because I agree. It's the same color as the peony.
Yeah. Just so vibrant, just perfect. Okay, what's next?
All right, so I think I'm gonna stop our share. I think it's time.
Okay.
I'm just going to end our screen share. There we go.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, Paulina, tell us what you're gonna demo for us.
So I'm going to demo my signature style compote arrangement. I will let you in on what the mechanics are behind these pieces. Today, I am using an Accent Decor ceramic compote. It is called the Julian. I really love it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big fan of a shallow bowl. I don't like it to be too deep because then you don't get that abundant feeling. And then my mechanic is, so Floral Genius is my favorite. They are American made. It is a Kenzen pin frog. And I am very particular about using the 3-inch. They are my favorite for regular compotes. I mean, the bigger the urn, the bigger the pin frog, but this is the best, most versatile out of all of them.
And what was on the bottom of that?
Oh, so in order to secure it to your vase, this is just Oasis floral putty.
Okay.
I don't care what color it is. It comes in white and it comes in the green. Right, it's great.
Right.
It's amazing. And I'm very conscious of making sure that the perimeter is fully wrapped, and a little bit on the actual edges to make sure I have a very secure pin frog, because you don't want it to be moving around on you.
Not unless you do.
Exactly. All right, so should I get started? Get the party started?
You will.
All right. So I use scissors mostly. Before I begin, my tip is always to use a needle nose. And this is just my favorite tool at the moment. But every tool I do use, even if it's like ARS tool or anything, I'm particular about this needle nose so that I can go in and manicure. And if things are feeling heavy, for example, if I have I'm using a little bit of Nandina that I had cut from my foliage garden. But let's say I want it to feel a little less heavy. I sometimes just trim it back a little bit to give it a little bit more negative space, a little bit more air. So it's nice. You can get in really tight with that. All right. So should I talk a little bit about what kind of flowers we have today?
Perfect.
All right. So today I wanted to use a lot of the most common things that I do use so that if you're going to try this at home, you know, more or less how to buy or what to buy. I always have a focal flower, which is just a big flower. It's a big face, whether it's a rose or a dahlia or a peony. These are called toffees. They're so beautiful.
They're so unique with that brown beige cafe au lait color.
And that swirl. Hi, yay, amazing, amazing. I always have a lime flower. We have some local snapdragons today.
Great.
So what I mean by a line is that the color goes all the way through in a line pattern, right? So snaps are great for that. I have some local zinnias.
Love those. They're so humble and so pretty.
Aren't they? And I actually have them in a couple different sizes.
Oh, great.
I mean, I have some, I clearly really love flowers. I have, these are a carnation. Some people don't love them, but I think they are just exquisitely lovely. Look at the ruffle.
They're so rich. And I think they have just suffered from 1950s applications of, you know, a corsage or, you know, an FTG.
Yes.
Something, but no, they're beautiful. What's that?
This is a Lysianthus. I love Lysianthus. I mean, it's just as beautiful from the back. I mean, I like to look at the stem in all of its glory. So these are also local. And then to finish off, I talked about dainty things and how I like dainty things. So I really do need small flowers. I have a couple of Ranunculus. So small. I mean, who doesn't love those? I have those little teeny zinnias, and I have, this is what I call, so as we were talking about color stories, you notice the color is a little bit of an analogous color scheme. It's not too crazy, but I always like to include a pop, whether it's just something to make it interesting. So today we have this fiery Lucifer crocosmia. So it's going to be really fun to include this little pop. And I think it's going to.
So I have those in my garden. So now I'm going to see what you do with them and I will copy you.
You have to, you should do it. And the other reason why I think they're going to work is if you look at the stem has this golden yellow in it. I mean, the base of the flower, which is exactly the same hue as our ranunculus. So I'm going to think about making sure that these girls are together, and then we're going to deepen that with the mustard. So the color story starts to read. And then the pinks will read as well, because the pinks are going to tell their own little color story. And the snapdragon also has this golden hue in it. So
the crocosmia, is it the same thing as the Montbretia? You know, and is that, did you call it the Lucifer? What did you call it?
Lucifer is the color. It's just this really bright, beautiful. And that little trumpet, I mean, they're just the sweetest. The curve.
That's a good curve.
We're going to have fun with that later. And the last but not least, like I said, I have foliage from the garden, Nandina, and I also cut some heuchera, which is the hardiest thing in the world. Everybody should have this in their garden. It is so beautiful. They're like little works of art.
I love them.
I love them too. And I cut a different color, couple color varieties to see what we want to do with that a little later on. And I'll show you, they're always very short, but they are my finisher. So we always talk about finishing to round out our design. So I'm going to get started. And like I said, I always set my shape first. So I'm going to let the flowers guide me. So I start with foliage. And this is kind of nice because I picked this one because it already has a curve on it. So I'm actually going to do it. Most people think it's going to, let me move this over a little bit. Most people would want it to go downward. I always point it upward. And then I'm going to scoot this over a little bit. Make sure you guys can see. Okay.
Is that taped? Did you tape?
Yes. Oh, I have tape. I forgot to mention. So for this specific design, because I want to pack it with flowers, and if you want to actually have it transport, I have a teeny tiny little, I can bring the computer over. I have a teeny tiny little chicken wire layer, just a single layer, not a double, because I want to be able to hit that pin frog. And then I tape it down just so she's not dancing around in there like your friend Paulina. Okay, so then I'm going to take this. So I want this asymmetrical shape. So I'm going to take my second stem.
So this is more Nandina?
Yes, this is more Nandina. It's a very, very tiny stem, so sometimes it's a little hard to get it in that pin frog at first. Perfect. And then I always talk about, so I have a little bit of a negative space here, but I want to bring the color all the way down. So I'm going to give my first stem a hug. I always like to hug the first stem with a little bit more greenery. So I'm just going to grab a couple pieces here. And what I'm doing, and I'm going to spin this around as I go. So if you see now, the color comes all the way down to the base. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to do the same on the other side so that no one feels left out and that we have balance. I talk a lot about balance as well.
Can I interrupt and say that I'm realizing that I'm the same size as you are, which is not exactly what we want. Okay. Can you expand your shared screen?
Let me see if I could.
No. Okay, no. Okay, keep going. Never mind.
All right.
You're big enough.
Maybe should I go on speaker view maybe?
Yes, it depends. Everybody has a different.
Everybody has a different template. So,
so just to give you a concept, that's where I am at right now. So I've set the size and I've set the shape. I'm probably not going to go further than this, but I always like to think about my vase as being a cute little bowl, and I want it to feel like it is abundant and just overflowing with flowers. So just like I gave this one a hug, we're going to give our other one a little bit of a hug. So I'm just going to take a little tiny piece and put it over here. And then I'm going to take another little piece.
There we go.
Okay. So at this point, I've now set my size and my shape, and I'm very, very methodical of the order that I place my initial things on. I always continue with my line flower because what I'm doing is I've now set things. So I want to make sure that I have an idea of where to follow my lines. So I'm just going to start filling out, and I always go from the outsides in, just like so. So again, we're bringing the color all the way down, and I'm going to mimic, I'm going to give my stem another hug with the flower on this side. Okay. And I actually have some pink ones too. So thought it'd be interesting if we cluster our snap colors on either end. So on this end, I'm following that line that I've created with my foliage. And I'm making sure also that nothing is of the same length. So I don't want the tips to be at the same length to make it look a little bit more natural. Right. Because our gardens, when we look at our gardens, nobody's growing on the same, nobody's the same height. Make sure I get it in there. And then again, I'm going to give it another little hug on this side.
You talk about flowers like they're your friends, and I think you must think of them that way.
I do, and I think they all bring such personality. I'm going to continue with my focal flower. So my focal flower is my big flower, and I pulled 5 roses, but I may or may not use all 5. And I'm going to do the same thing, focusing on the edge of the vase here. Make sure this guy gets, there we go. So what I've done is now I'm creating here. And I know I have a little negativity here, but we have other things to plug in. So again, for balance, I want to make sure that this mustard color is on the other side of the arrangement. So if you're sitting on this side, you also get to enjoy one. And then I'm gonna, this one has a little bit of a nice curve to it. So I think I'm gonna play with that concept, and I'm gonna dart it over this way. Great.
So I need to ask a question from someone who's typed in. Do you determine the shape beforehand or plan as you go based on the flowers that you have? I mean, I know that you have that design that's your signature design, but do you let them determine the form, the line of the arrangement?
More or less, yes. I always want to do something asymmetrical, more or less. But if there's a stem that has a really amazing curve on it and the design starts to pull a little bit drapier, then I will accent that. Absolutely. I will let the flowers do the talking.
So are you able to source? You kept talking about locally grown. What's your source for that?
We have a flower collective here in New Jersey, which is very special because we have a bunch of farms that participate in getting us fresh cut flowers, and we have a manager and we have a meetup point where all of these flower farmers cut. We can pre-order with them. It's truly an amazing thing. So that's how I'm able to really source a lot of local, because it's all centralized in one space.
Excellent. Excellent.
So I'm continuing on. I'm now layering in a little bit of the pink. And like, I want to keep this nice and low in the center. I'm just going to cut a little shorter. So don't be afraid to cut nice and short. There we go. So now we're introducing this, a little bit of this pink over here.
So someone's wondering if we could possibly get a plant list when you're through.
Sure. Of what I'm using right now, or just in general of what you should buy?
No, for this.
Okay, perfect. So what I'm starting to do, if you've noticed, I'm starting to, I'm keeping the middle nice and low. I'm starting to fill out mostly the perimeter. I'm going to bring in a little bit of the Lysianthus. And I'm okay with.
That's a big Lysianthus.
It is enormous.
Yeah.
I mean,
the more the better, but I've never seen one that large.
It's like so impressive how they got it to get to be this large. So, and then what I do a lot of times is I start to push everybody. Everybody needs to relax. Now the very center, a lot of people always ask me, well, what do you do with the center? I cut something super duper short and I put it right down below. It's not really there to be viewed. It's there to just cover mechanics.
Okay.
I don't know if you remember me saying that I like people to have the eye travel. So if I have this apricot here, I have one in the middle, and now I'm going to put one on this side so that the eye is traveling through the arrangement as well.
Paulina, I need to ask you, is there a way for us to see this overhead a little bit? Yes, pick up your computer.
Right. So it's just like this random lingering Lysianthus that I'm then going to hover things over, smaller, daintier things. So what it's doing is I almost call it like the foundation of the house. It's not there, it's just there to be purposeful. It's not there to actually be viewed. I'm starting to layer in a little bit of this coral, and I actually matched it with the orange here. I'm gonna layer in a little bit more on this side for balance. And I really love how the zinnia just gives it a little bit of, all right, so we're gonna start having fun here in a second. So see how this is kind of nice and flat?
Yep.
So I'm going to give it a little bit more height.
So Marvina is not having her questions answered, but I'm seeing this question. So I can't figure out why I didn't see your other one. What is the name? Here's one. What is the name of the object in the bottom? I guess she's talking about in the bottom of the compote.
Oh, that is just a pin frog. That is something, you can even source them on Amazon. You can get them at most, not at most, but you know, anywhere really on Amazon, and I get mine from Harmony for Harvest, which you can just buy online.
Okay.
So it's nice and easy. So what I'm doing here now is I'm starting to extend my lines. I'm starting to make this, like I said, a little bit more dramatic. I'm gonna hold up on the zinnia. I'm gonna layer in a little bit of this ranunculus. And I think because this is such a really cute, simple little shape, it's not super windy, but it's still really sweet. I'm gonna highlight that. Oops. Let me go in on this side actually. I have a little bit more real estate in my pin frog. And the beauty about the pin frog is that it just stays. I mean, if you notice, I put it in there and that's just, it's there. It's not going anywhere.
So when you say pin frog, you mean P-I-N, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, somebody asked the spelling of that. And someone's asking about the ranunculus that they're available for such a short time. Where do you get yours?
Very true. This is, I tried to source as local as possible for this arrangement, but I do source from a couple different vendors that provide me South American product.
Okay.
So that's where that came from. These are, I believe, from Chile.
Okay.
So we're starting, and what I did here is I'm clustering the yellow, and I think I'm going to cluster a little bit of yellow on the other side as well. And I'm just going to let them float and be fun on the outsides. Because
this is so good.
That way you get, ooh, look at that one. Woo. She has something to say, doesn't she?
She does.
All right.
She does.
So we're still allowing the negativity through this space here, right?
So someone's asking about your Lazy Susan. Where can they get one? Talking about your turntable.
Oh, I love my Lazy Susan. The wooden one I got from Bed Bath & Beyond. Okay. And I just have a little marble topper on it to protect it. I like the weight on it. Sometimes I'm doing things that are very, very heavy. And I tend to find it a little bit hard because the Lazy Susan will start to topple. Right. So they have marble Lazy Susans as well that you can get. Again, you can source them online on Amazon, things like that. So I'm layering in a couple more of these zins. And what I'm doing here is I just created like a mom and a baby. There's a little more of a little more part. Here's the zin.
Can we talk a little bit about substitutions?
Sure.
Like for roses, someone's asking what you might substitute for those.
Dahlias, peony when they are available. Anything that has a large face. So even if for example, this Lysianthus is so enormous, I would have maybe just used the Lysianthus as the large face. I have a little bit of a pocket here, so I'm just gonna, that's where I always save a rose for the last, for more towards the end, because that's where I put it. I put it wherever I need fill. I try not to over design, overpack, because then I think that's where you lose the airiness and the, I don't know, the flow of what you're doing. I'm gonna go a little shorter with it.
Well, it keeps it looser. when you don't
Exactly.
pack it. I think, so many of us were weaned on the French hand tie, which is beautiful, but when people started making them so moundy and
Right.
tight, which is still pretty, that pave look or what is so pretty, but this is loose and friendly
Agreed.
and yeah, the more flowers you put in there, the more you get away from that. So I'm with you.
Precisely.
Where would you take this? Someone's asking what the final destination of this particular design might be.
My house.
I mean, it's a centerpiece.
But this would be, for example, yeah, I could do this for a wedding. I've done this before for there are people that do requests, for example, if there's like a big birthday and a husband or a partner wants to gift a really, really fabulous arrangement, then I will make something in this light and in this style for them. Because it does take a little time and it takes a lot of product. So that's, I try to, this isn't like an everyday thing, but it's really nice for bigger occasions. I mean, I've even done this for rehearsal dinners and, depending on what the theme is of what people are having. Okay, so I've started to plug in a little bit of the greenery. And now I'm just kind of covering up a little bit of what I feel like looks a little bit stemmy. So we're here. I'm going to start with the crocosmia, and I'm going to manicure it down because I really just want it to be a single. Now I'm not going to throw away the arms. I'm going to plug in the arms elsewhere. And then, so I talk a lot about adding drama at the end. I don't even think I'm going to be able to get this on the screen. I'm going to ask my colleague Holly to back up the computer just a little bit. Have a little bit more space to show you. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I want this thing to now hover above that original greenery to really give this thing just that really special. It's a little long. I don't want it to be too far away from my zinnia.
So I know you said that this is a sort of special occasion design, but I'm thinking if like I would put that on a console in my front hall.
Absolutely.
And that would greet everyone. And then I would pull from that smaller things that have sort of the same palette or something, but this, or a centerpiece on a table or on a pedestal, or I mean, just it's a masterpiece in the making.
Oh, you are so sweet.
No, it is. Look at it.
So what I did here, remember I talked about this, I call it like the bomb color, the red. Originally you may say to yourself, oh, it's not going to work, but I do feel like it is working just because what I did was I pulled from up here, but remember what we want the eye to travel. I bring it down to the base. So I'm very intentional with where that color lands. And then I'm just going to add a little bit more. Again, I'm just doing some singles. And I really like to do a little double of my drama queens here. And you'll see it when I push it, when I turn this thing around, you'll see what it's doing.
Oh yeah.
So now it's adding this flow. And then because why not?
Yep.
I'm gonna highlight, so what we did with the ranunculus here, I've created this negative pocket. So I'm gonna hover one right over here.
Can I ask you, someone wants to know about the vase life of this beautiful arrangement. If some flowers start to fade, can you replace and with what?
Yes, you can. These are somewhat on the delicate side, not so much. This arrangement should last, if you water it every day and all that, maybe about 5 days. Okay. The crocosmia is very bloomed right now. It's a little bit more what I call event ready. So I would just replace that. I mean, maybe with like a little bit of greenery, because I'm packing this with so many flowers. You can replace it with anything dainty. Queen Anne, you can go cut it outside on the side of the road. I love cutting these some what I call roadsidea. Anything that looks cool on the side of the road.
That Latin botanical name, yes.
Right, exactly, you know. So I'm just taking the arms of the crocosmia and I'm using it as dainty texture right now. And this is just, I love crocosmia, I really do. And I love it in the yellow as well. I just thought this red was so fiery and beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm doing right here is I'm just gradating that color down just a little bit more again. And I only have about one more. So I could be a little bit more dramatic. And then sometimes I say to myself, do I want it like that or do I want it to go up? So I think we're gonna just extend this line a little bit further and see where I land. Okay, let's see.
So someone's asking how you affix the chicken wire to the frog.
I do a little, so if the frog's in the, here we go. So frog in the compote, I take the diameter of the vase and I cut this tiny, tiny little square of chicken wire and I just curl it in to hug the pin frog. So it's not covering the pin frog, it's just like a dome over it. And then I do a little bit of tape. And like I said, if that really helps.
Compote, you mean?
Yes, to the compote brother, yep. So the heuchera is really special. I think I'm gonna go with the more chartreusey color.
Pretty.
I think that's gonna lend us. So I have a little bit of a pocket here. So I'm just gonna have her hang out a little bit deeper. I want her to be, she's a background singer. She's not our pop star, right?
20 feet from stardom.
Right?
So can you tell our audience approximately the cost of this retail?
Retail, maybe $275. I'd say we are in the New York City market, so it's a little bit pricier around here. But I could make this with less flour for, let's say, $175. So look at how nice the heuchera just anchors it, right? It just gives it a really pretty color. You know, and right, and if you see there's like a red veining, I'm going to pop it underneath this crocosmia here on the base of the vase on the other side. And I'm going to show you how it almost makes it pop even more. So that crocosmia is really, really, really nice. I'm going to ask my colleague Holly to come back over here and push it a little bit closer. And I do have some Coral Bell heuchera, which is, this is, what do they call that? The inconsequential flower that it has. Mm-hmm. And I'm just going to, I like the dark stem of it. It pulls the darkness of the crocosmia through. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to just do a little cluster just on one side, on either end. I'm going to do a little bit more greenery and we are practically done here. And then I'll put it down on the table, take it off of our little spinner here so you can really, really see it. And what I also like is that the zinnia has a little bit of a darker center, some of them too. So it helps play off of that.
She does.
These are just so delicate and sweet. Oh, look at the curve on that.
Beautiful.
Right? I mean, maybe she goes on this side. I love a curve. The curvier, the better, right?
Yes.
Amazing. And I always want them to have a friend. I don't ever want them to be alone, right?
Exactly.
Getting little families in there.
Yeah. So someone has asked, what would you say is the hardest part of building an arrangement?
Oh, the hardest part, to be honest, for me is actually the mechanics, is making sure that the mechanic that I'm using is absolutely incredibly stable. Because the minute things don't catch and they start to move, you know, frustration starts to settle in. You start to lose your lines. As I design, I notice I'm really thinking about color and I talk about the lines and where I'm putting texture and all of that. If I'm starting to struggle with that, it just goes out the window and then I feel like I have to start from scratch. Mm-hmm. Creatively in that regard. Mm-hmm. And the other thing that I find difficult is if you don't have it, for me, if I don't have enough of a dainty flower, more, if I don't have enough texture, I feel like the arrangement starts to look flat. Just for my own kind of personal taste. Okay, great. We are all set. We're all done. I'm going to
Perfection. Just
take her down
Okay.
so that you could really see.
Bravo. Yeah, let's put, yeah, great.
Move it back a little bit further.
And I do want to just recommend to anyone who is enjoying this, if you follow Paulina on Instagram, Blue Jasmine Floral, you will just have a wash of these, just all these beautiful designs and installations. It's just eye candy for days. So
yes,
no, it's true. It's true. So somebody, and I think this is a great question. Could you talk a little bit about the mechanics for the hanging Forsythia? Back to that.
Oh, that's a great question. It's funny. I actually have it fully dried, hanging in my studio right now. All it is I took a chicken wire tube and I created almost like the letter J with it. So that was my guiding shape. And what I did was I used the curvature of the Forsythia to make the top feel like a little bit more of that crescent moon. So the one thing about that piece, that was a piece, I came into the studio at like 7 o'clock in the morning to make that because I couldn't sleep. I literally could not sleep that night thinking about what I can do with this thing. I'm like, oh, I need to make this, So that was just for me, just for fun, to see if I can actually make this thing happen. It doesn't have a water source, so it only lived about 6 hours. So if I were to sell that to a client, I would be making that on site and very close to reception start time. Yeah, I'd be very conscious of that. But yeah, it's just chicken wire. And the more you mold your chicken wire, whatever the mold you're doing in your chicken wire is what you can acquire pretty much any shape, anything you want.
Well, it to me was just so radiant.
Oh,
And almost like a sheath, like wheat. I mean, just the way it was all gathered together, but it had so much movement. So I'm glad somebody asked that because I got to gush about it a little bit more. This is absolutely perfect for us. You're not in the way. I'm trying to see if there are any more questions. I think you've answered all our questions to, I hope, everyone's satisfaction, certainly mine. Great. And I just want to thank you so much for being a part of our 10th anniversary ADAC and Bloom with Flower Magazine. And let's give it just one more.
Let me do a little spin for you.
One more shoulder. The shoulder move.
Oh.
Yeah. Kind of feel it.
Right. If y'all will follow me, you'll see me do a lot of stories. Those are where I get really wacky and fun. So follow along and you get to see a little bit more shimmies.
You are wacky and fun, but you're super talented and unique. And thank you again for being with us.
I'm so glad to have been a part of this, Margot. Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. And thank you again to ADAC and Bloom and all our sponsors, Century, Accent Decor, and Mayesh Cut Flower. Everyone have a great rest of the summer. Go out and cut some flowers and do some arrangements. Bye.
Bye now.